padaya Krishna prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyapati Ashtakya Dishatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyapati Ashtakya Dishatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
another daily reading. Broadcasting live from Athens, Krishna House. We're continuing in Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Chapter 13, text 17. Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dudati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagarna Laganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagarna Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome Karoti Vachalam Pangong Lung Hayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam. Okay. Chapter 13, text 17. Avibhaktam jabhuteshu vibhaktam ivachastitam bhutavartracha tajyeyam krishnu prabhavishnu cha. Although the Supersoul appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops all. Purport. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart as the Supersoul. Does this mean that he has become divided? No. Actually, he is one. The example is given of the sun. The sun, at the meridian, is situated in its place. But if one goes 4,000 or 5,000 miles in all directions and asks, "Where is the sun?" everyone will say it is shining on his head. In the Vedic literature, this example is given to show that although he is undivided, he is situated as if divided. Also, it is said in Vedic literature that one Vishnu is present everywhere by his omnipotence, just as the sun appears in many places to many persons. And the Supreme Lord, although the maintainer of every living entity, devours everything at the time of annihilation. This was confirmed in the 11th chapter when the Lord said that he had come to devour all the warriors assembled at Kurukshetra. He also mentioned that in the form of time he devours also. He is the annihilator, the killer of all. When there is creation, he develops all from their original state, and at the time of annihilation, he devours them. The Vedic hymns confirm the fact that he is the origin of all living entities and the rest of all. After creation, everything rests in his omnipotence, and after annihilation, everything again returns to rest in him. These are the confirmations of Vedic hymns. Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat paryantyabi samvishanti tat brahmatat vijigyasashva. Taittiriya Upanishad 3.1.1. 18. Jyotisham apitas jyotish tamasa paramuchyate jnanam yeyam jnana gamyam hridi sarvasya vishtitam. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. Purport. The Supersoul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the source of light in all luminous objects like the sun, moon, and stars. In the Vedic literature, we find that in the spiritual kingdom there is no need of sun or moon, because the effulgence of the Supreme Lord is there. In the material world, that Brahmajyoti, the Lord's spiritual effulgence, is covered by the Mahat Tattva. The material elements, therefore, in this material world, we require this assistance. Let's start that sentence over. In the material world, that Brahmajyoti, the Lord's spiritual effulgence, is covered by the Mahat Tattva, the material elements. Therefore, in this material world, we require the assistance of sun, moon, electricity, and so on for light. But in the spiritual world, there is no need of such things. It is clearly stated in the Vedic literature that because of his luminous effulgence, everything is illuminated. It is clear, therefore, that his situation is not in the material world. He is situated in the spiritual world, which is far, far away in the spiritual sky. That is also confirmed in the Vedic literature. Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parashtat. Svetashvatara Upanishad 3.8. He is just like the sun, eternally luminous, but he is far, far beyond the darkness of this material world. His knowledge is transcendental. The Vedic literature confirms that Brahman is concentrated transcendental knowledge. To one who is anxious to be transferred to that spiritual world, knowledge is given by the Supreme Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart. One Vedic mantra, Svetashvatara Upanishad 6.18 says, Tam hadevam atma buddhi prakasha mumukshorvai sharanam aham prapadye. One must surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead if he at all wants liberation. As far as the goal of ultimate knowledge is concerned, it is also confirmed in Vedic literature. Tam eva vidit vati mrityum eti. Only by knowing him can one surpass the boundary of birth and death. Svetashvatara Upanishad 3.8. He is situated in everyone's heart as the Supreme Controller. The Supreme has legs and hands distributed everywhere, and this cannot be said of the individual soul. Therefore, that there are two knowers of the field of activity, the individual soul and the super soul, must be admitted. One's hands and legs are distributed locally, but Krishna's hands and legs are distributed everywhere. This is confirmed in the Svetashvatara Upanishad 3.17, Sarvasya Prabhum Ishanam Sarvasya Sharanam Brihat. That Supreme Personality of Godhead, Super Soul, is the Prabhu, or Master, of all living entities. Therefore, he is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. So there is no denying the fact that the Supreme Super Soul and the individual soul are always different.
So, he is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge. He is the goal of knowledge. And he's situated in everyone's heart. Is there any way that I can perceive this fact? Like, that's my question. And also, I'm just wondering, Like what does that? How can I see that in an example?
That he's knowledge?
That he's knowledge. Okay, so like I can imagine that. But what about like the goal of knowledge? I haven't thought about that yet.
Well, when somebody is acquiring knowledge about something, generally they're trying to find where to invest their heart, their time,
That's true.
their effort. So, you know, Krishna is the ultimate goal of all knowledge in that way, because he's the ultimate worshipable object. You know, people get knowledge about something. If you want to learn, if you see something and you think it's interesting, and you want to get knowledge about it and learn about it to find out if it really is something that you want to invest yourself into. So, Krishna is the topmost goal of all knowledge, because he is the Prabhu. He is the master of all living entities. So, by actually, becoming interested in him and gaining knowledge about him, which is not different than him because he's absolute, transcendental knowledge is of the same quality. Just like hearing Srila Prabhupada's books is essentially non-different than chanting, in the sense that it's a pure transcendental sound vibration, which is an incarnation of Krishna. So, in that way, he is the knowledge, and he's the goal of the knowledge, because the goal of knowledge is basically devotion, where one wants to invest their heart and devote their heart. It can be even seen in mundane examples. So people get knowledge about something only to ultimately invest themselves, their hearts, into it. So none of those, nothing else can compare to Krishna, because he actually can give shelter to the living entities, because he's the source of the living entities. Did that answer it?
I want to go over something again that I'm worried I may have lost. But you already said. Krishna's. You said you connected how Krishna is absolute and transcendental knowledge of him. Knowledge of him is transcendental and is therefore absolute. Or you connected that knowledge of him is absolute, and thus you said that in that way. I didn't quite make this connection. You said in that way, that makes it such that he is the goal of knowledge.
No, in that way, he's non-different than the knowledge, because pure spiritual knowledge is pure transcendental sound vibration. In essence, non-different than the Maha Mantra, which is an incarnation of Krishna. In that way, he's non-different than the knowledge, and the goal of all the knowledge is Krishna. And Krishna is the goal of all knowledge, because the basic process of acquiring knowledge is a process of ultimately where to invest one's heart or devote oneself in anything. That's the whole point I was making. Does that answer it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start recording little bits of time. That'll help me.
I guess we're on 19. Iti kshetram tata jnanam yeyam choktam samasatah madbhakta etad vigyaya madbhavaya papadyate. Thus the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. Purport. The Lord has described in summary the body, knowledge, and the knowable. This knowledge is of three things: the knower, the knowable, and the process of knowing. Combined, these are called Vigyan, or the science of knowledge. Perfect knowledge can be understood by the unalloyed devotees of the Lord directly. Others are unable to understand. The monists say that at the ultimate stage, these three items become one, but the devotees do not accept this. Knowledge and development of knowledge mean understanding oneself in Krishna consciousness. We are being led by material consciousness, but as soon as we transfer all consciousness to Krishna's activities and realize that Krishna is everything, then we attain real knowledge. In other words, knowledge is nothing but the preliminary stage of understanding devotional service perfectly. In the 15th chapter, this would be very clearly explained.
So hang on, if I'm like sitting here, if I'm like a karmi, and I'm reading the Ramayana, and I'm like, and I see, okay, Hanuman, well, he jumped across the ocean. Okay, Hanuman's doing this, he's doing that. There's a chance that I'm like super impressed. I'm like, okay, he's doing all that for like God, and he's just doing all of this, and he's not getting anything. He's just doing it to serve. That's amazing. That's fascinating. And then another perception is, why would he do all of that? I don't get it. I don't get it. And so would you say that whenever Prabhupada says, in other words, knowledge is nothing but the preliminary stage of understanding devotional service perfectly. In other words, knowledge is nothing but the preliminary stage of understanding devotional service perfectly. So the preliminary stage of understanding devotional service perfectly is called knowledge. So in other words, he's saying that like all knowledge that is had by like a karmi, for example, all real knowledge is in order to understand devotional service perfectly. Is that correct?
Yeah, but there's a distinction. If you go back to verses 8 through 12, you will read that he is defining what is actual knowledge.
Right.
Humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, and so on. So it doesn't mean that whatever like stupid like information content some karmi knows about the world, that's not considered actual knowledge.
Okay, but all of this, so all knowledge about everything you can know regarding humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, all of that is for the sake of understanding devotional service perfectly. All of this is real cleanliness, self-control is for the sake of devotional service. Detachment is for the sake of devotional service. The perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease is for the sake of devotional service. Aspiring to live in a solitary place. Detachment from the general mass of people. All of that is for the sake of devotional service.
It's supposed to be.
That's really cool. I just like that. There's something really fascinating about that. I'm glad you clarified what you said earlier, but I also find that very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, Prabhupada's given us a different paradigm. The whole purpose of human life is to basically engage in devotional service. Nothing else. And if you just do that, everything's always taken care of. Everything that we've been taught otherwise is basically a lie. You don't have to devote yourself to money. Everyone's been basically brainwashed into becoming consumers and making rich people more money.
Yeah.
Indoctrinated. So, yeah. Literally everything, if you get into all the details and spend your whole life studying and figuring out all this knowledge, basically eventually you'll find yourself eventually going in circles around God. And then basically all that search for knowledge will push you into like entering into a devotional relationship with God. Otherwise, it won't go anywhere. You'll just go around in circles. Yeah. And for people who reject God or whatever, that's what all they do anyway. Yeah. So,
No, yeah.
just, you know. Anyway.
Hey.
Now, to summarize, one may understand that verses 6 and 7, beginning from Mahabhutani and continuing through Chaitana Dhritihi, analyze the material elements and certain manifestations of the symptoms of life. These combine to form the body or the field of activities. In verses 8 through 12, from Amanitvam through Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam, describe the process of knowledge for understanding both types of knower of the field of activities, namely the soul and the supersoul. Then verses 13 through 18, beginning from Anadi Mat Padam and continuing through Hridi Sarvasya Vishtitam, describe the soul and the Supreme Lord, or the supersoul. Thus, three items have been described: the field of activity, the body, the process of understanding, and both the soul and the supersoul. It is especially described here that only the unalloyed devotees of the Lord can understand these three items clearly. So for these devotees, Bhagavad Gita is fully useful. It is they who can attain the supreme goal, the nature of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. In other words, only devotees and not others can understand Bhagavad Gita and derive the desired result. Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Vidyanadi Ubhavapi Vikarangscha Gunaschaiva Vidi Prakriti Sambhavan. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations in the modes of matter are products of material nature. Purport: by the knowledge given in this chapter, one can understand the body, the field of activities, and the knowers of the body, both the individual soul and the supersoul. The body is the field of activity and is composed of material nature. The individual soul that is embodied and enjoying the activities of the body is the Purusha, or the living entity. He is one knower, and the other is the supersoul. Of course, it is to be understood that both the supersoul and the individual entity are different manifestations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The living entity is in the category of his energy, and the supersoul is in the category of his personal expansion. Both material nature and the living entity are eternal. That is to say that they existed before the creation. The material manifestation is from the energy of the Supreme Lord, and so also are the living entities. But the living entities are of the superior energy. Both the living entities and material nature existed before this cosmos was manifested. Material nature was absorbed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mahavishnu, and when it was required, it was manifested by the agency of the Mahatattva. Similarly, the living entities are also in him, and because they are conditioned, they are averse to serving the Supreme Lord. Thus they are not allowed to enter into the spiritual sky. But with the coming forth of material nature, these living entities are again given a chance to act in the material world and prepare themselves to enter into the spiritual world. That is the mystery of this material creation. Actually, the living entity is originally the spiritual part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but due to his rebellious nature, he is conditioned within material nature. It really does not matter how these living entities or superior entities of the Supreme Lord have come in contact with material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead knows, however, how and why this actually took place. In the scriptures, the Lord says that those attracted by this material nature are undergoing a hard struggle for existence. But we should know it with certainty from the descriptions of these few verses that all transformations and influences of material nature by the three modes are also productions of material nature. All transformations and variety in respect to living entities are due to the body. As far as spirit is concerned, the living entities are all the same. Karya karana kartritve hetu prakritir uchyate purusha sukha dukhanam bhaktritve hetur uchyate. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Purport. The different manifestations of body and senses among the living entities are due to material nature. There are 8,400,000 different species of life, and these varieties are creations of the material nature. They arise from the different sensual pleasures of the living entity, who thus desires to live in this body or that. When he is put into different bodies, he enjoys different kinds of happiness and distress. His material happiness and distress are due to his body, and not to himself as he is. In his original state, there is no doubt of enjoyment. Therefore, that is his real state. Because of the desire to lord it over material nature, he is in the material world. In the spiritual world, there is no such thing. The spiritual world is pure, but in the material world, everyone is struggling hard to acquire different kinds of pleasures for the body. It might be more clear to state that this body is the effect of the senses. The senses are instruments for gratifying desire. Now the sum total, body and instrument senses, are offered by material nature, and as will be clear in the next verse, the living entity is blessed or damned with circumstances according to his past desire and activity. According to one's desires and activities, material nature places one in various residential quarters. The being himself is the cause of his attaining such residential quarters and his attendant enjoyment or suffering. Once placed in some particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature, because the body, being matter, acts according to the laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. Suppose an entity is put into the body of a dog. As soon as he is put into the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. He cannot act otherwise. And if the living entity is put into the body of a hog, then he is forced to eat stool and act like a hog. Similarly, if the living entity is put into the body of a demigod, he must act according to his body. This is the law of nature. But in all circumstances, the supersoul is with the individual soul. That is explained in the Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.1. As follows, Dva Suparna Suyuja Sakhaya. The Supreme Lord is so kind upon the living entity that he always accompanies the individual soul in all circumstances, and in all circumstances is present as the Supersoul or Paramatma. Hold on. Okay. Purusha prakriti stohi bhunte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sarasadyani janmasu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Purport. This verse is very important for an understanding of how the living entities transmigrate from one body to another. It is explained in the second chapter that the living entity is transmigrating from one body to another just as one changes dress. This change of dress is due to his attachment to material existence. As long as he is captivated by this false manifestation, he is to continue transmigrating from one body to another. Due to his desire to lord it over material nature, he is put into such undesirable circumstances. Under the influence of material desire, the entity is born sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a beast, as a bird, as a worm, as an aquatic, as a saintly man, as a bug. This is going on. And in all cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances, yet he is under the influence of material nature. How he is put into such different bodies is explained here. It is due to association with the different modes of nature. One has to rise, therefore, above the three material modes and become situated in the transcendental position. That is called Krishna consciousness. Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another because he has material desires since time immemorial. But he has to change that conception. That change can be effected only by hearing from authoritative sources. The best example here. Arjuna is hearing the science of God from Krishna, the living entity. If he submits to this hearing process, the living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long-cherished desire to dominate material nature. And gradually and proportionately, as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. That's the trick. In a Vedic mantra, it is said that as he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he proportionately relishes his eternal blissful life. Simple. One thing I'm going to stop there. I know it's a little early, but you have to make simply wonderfuls to make sure make sure you have enough of them for a japa period tomorrow.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I was actually craving them earlier.
But we can have, if there's any other points, we can take them. Nobody's here.
Good footage. I don't know about any other points. The super soul, is there any way to perceive the super soul and be like, oh yeah, that's the super soul? Like, know it for sure. Like, just look at knowledge and just know that that's super soul, is that it?
Yeah. There's a way. But it's not mechanical.
So it's like asking someone to...
But, someone who's really in Krishna consciousness is seeing Krishna in everything.
Can you describe the flavor of this non-mechanical thing?
The flavor?
It's not mechanical, right? Yeah.
It's natural.
Yeah, okay.
It's natural. It's a Krishna conscious person seeing Krishna in everything. To get on that frequency or on that vibration of really seeing Krishna in everything. How can you not see the super soul? Like, it's literally everywhere in every single atom and every single thing.
Right.
There's not a moment where we're perceiving anything that's separate. But anyway, it's different devotees have different moods, different realizations.
Yeah.
It's developing our relationship with Krishna, the holy name, especially the holy name, chanting. Being in a disposition of service. There's never a time. There's never a disconnect from Super Soul. Well, Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Panchakalpa Turvishcha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Antakarti Vaishnavrinda ki Jai. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow. Yeah.